Hello and welcome to my studio. I'm Josee and this is the Knit Up and Dye podcast, episode 66. Let's have a parade. I've got some fun stuff in store today. We'll get to that. As always, I always start with a thank you to you guys. Special thanks go out to all my subscribers, new and ongoing. I love you guys. You're the reason that I do this, and I can't say enough about how this is really about you, and your comments and your feedback drive what you see here. So please, I would love to hear you if you have suggestions or encouragement, of course. Special warm hello and welcome go out to Holly, Hey Brown Berry, Wendy, Stella, Laced in Stitches, and anyone else I missed because of your private accounts. Often I can't see your names. I can see that I have a subscriber, but they protect you guys. You guys are wonderful. Thank you for adding me to your lives. Special love and thanks go out to a whole list of people. Patricia, Lisa Lette, Elaine, Cappy, Melody, Ruby Lou, Wayne, Tiffany, Carol, Kath, Catherine, Lamore, Vishon, Marie, Linda, Bex, Wheezy, Cindy, Christy, Neetsy. Neetsy, you made me cry. Thank you. Charlotte, Chris, Roseanne, Linda, Marie, Leanne, Eve. Eve, I want to see more of your podcast. Linda, David, congratulations on your new house. Donna, Betty Ann, I'm with you, girl. I know you hurt. Keep doing that PT. I'm sure you're doing great. Scott, John, Carolyn, Kate, Terry, Nancy, and Rachel. Hello, I love you guys. And as always, a warm hello and thank you to my patrons. You honor me. You can't know how much your support means. Thank you. Let's start off by talking about dyeing. That's how you welcome any group. You talk about death. No, dyeing yarn. I had a massive dye, and I have tons and tons of yarn. There's going to be a big shop update. I'm hoping to get that up later today. Also, I'm dyeing more yarn later today. I'm ramping up. I'm trying to fill my shop as full as I can so you have as much variety as possible for my anniversary sale. May is my anniversary month, and I have a massive sale all month long, month of May. I will do my best to keep new yarns flowing in. If you have a favorite that you're not seeing, contact me and I'll dye some up and get it out to you. The sale begins May 1st, and it will be 30% off everything. I will have a coupon code loaded here for you, and it'll be advertised everywhere else. You'll see it in the Ravelry group, and you'll see it on Ravelry ads as well. I'll have it listed up in my blog. It's going to be listed everywhere. However, it is not a quote-unquote public sale. It will not automatically apply to your shopping cart. You will need to use the anniversary code. Just for tracking purposes, this helps me with taxes later on. So I'm sorry, it will not be automatic, but please use the code, and I'll keep the code as simple a code as possible. Thank you. Go get some yarn. 30% is a deep discount. Enjoy yourself, have some fun, and like I said, if there's something that you're not seeing that you would like to have, contact me. Custom orders are discounted. Moving on. I'm so excited. 3 years. That's huge for me, and I'm so proud of that. So yay! Moving on. Knitting. Let's have a parade. So there are a number of other podcasts that I watch that I really enjoy, and I need to do another podcast episode where I talk about all the podcasts that I watch and enjoy, and the features of each and why I enjoy them. Yeah, I recently found Baba Yaya, Wendy, hello, I love you. Entertaining and fun and down to earth and real, and you feel like you're sitting in her living room, and I love that. And that's very much what I try to convey here is that you and I are sitting down for a cup of joy and a chat, and that's what I really appreciate. I don't have a knit community. I don't have a knit night that I go to. You're my knit night. You're my time away. You're my conversation. And those feedbacks and those notes that I get from you all week long are so fulfilling. That's my stitch and bitch. That's my community, and I just want to build that, and I enjoy it so much, and I'm finding ways to incorporate you guys so that you get more of the experience that I'm getting. We'll get back to that. In the meantime, like I said, let's have a parade. One of the things that I love that I've seen on a couple of other podcasts that I really enjoy was, from time to time, your host or hostess will do a parade of whips. Well, they'll show everything that they have in progress, everything that is on needles or in stages of design or stages of whatever set of progress. And I think it's very fascinating for me. It gives me a view into the mind of the knitter, or designer as the case may be, and how they think. It supports me in my, ooh, shiny, because we are all distracted. We are all tempted. We all see new fibers and new patterns, and we run down that rabbit hole, and everything else just gets left behind. And it's curious to see what gets left behind and the reasons behind its delays. And where I'm just getting back into knitting again, really, I'm finally coming up to full speed. I have one more physical therapy appointment. It is Thursday, and although I have a dull ache from time to time, I put in some serious knitting time yesterday, and I have full range of motion despite the lamp, and I'm not hurting. Dull ache, maybe, but I also slept on it, which I'm not supposed to do, and good enough. I'm really excited. I really feel like I'm at 90%. I'm going to call it 90%. So by Thursday of this week, I'm hoping that my physical therapist will sign off on me as well, please. And worst case scenario, I may have one more week, but I'm going to keep doing my exercises either way. And that's very important. Make sure you're doing your stretches before you knit. Make sure you stop in the middle of that marathon, not only to use the restroom, but to do some stretches as well. And you can stretch on your way to the bathroom if you need to. Do all your stretches. So I find this parade of whips so interesting. I thought, hey, I'm just getting back into speed. I have already gone down the rabbit hole of temptation and started a new project that I probably shouldn't have. And I have all these things that I haven't touched for months or longer. And I want to refocus. I want to focus on these things. I want to get them moving. I want to get them done. I have had calls out from you guys saying, when is this design going to get done? That's in the parade, and therefore needs to be addressed. And I feel like if I do this parade and I share this with you, not only may it be interesting to you to see my madness, but it will also put me on task and make me focus and make me get these things done. Maybe. Temptation happens, projects come up, sometimes there are deadlines, sometimes there are things that we have to do regardless of what we want to do. Life happens, but let the parade begin. Let the parade begin. I'm going to start off, like any good parade, with the pretty girls out in the front. These are the things that have my most active attention at the moment and that are getting the most love. And we're going to start with the temptation that kicked in yesterday. I had a lovely chat, a video chat via Skype with my dear friend Bex yesterday, and she had recently purchased a sock blank from me, and it had a pot mate, which I fell in love with, and I opted to keep for myself. And this is it. This particular sock blank is called Royal Blunders. not because I made a mistake, but because it's a beautiful royal purple, and it has a teal in it, and I love it, and I thought it was very regal in its colors, and I couldn't come up with any other name. I really racked my head on that one, and I don't know why. I'm sure you're looking at it screaming 12 other names like Boysenberry Pie, or as Bex suggested, Nebula. For some reason, Nebula kept coming up in my head too, and it just wasn't blue navy enough for me, and the white was just a little bit too predominant. Anywho, I cast on a pair of socks while we were chatting. Totally improvised, just to see how this blank is knitting up, and I'm loving it. It is so much fun. It is so pretty. I think the colors are just gorgeous. I love how the sock blank allows them to blend around and mix and not really have any true defined pattern. It's kind of like white noise on the TV when the channel would go off after the night. And if you're under the age of probably 30, you have no idea what I'm talking about. But TV stations used to shut down at the end of the night, and you'd get just static. This is like colorful static, and I'm forever amazed watching it unfurl and go from this lovely painted thing to this very pretty, noisy, fun pattern. It's an improvised pattern to the outside. I am playing with a stitch. You totally cannot see the stitch in this yarn. It's more to keep it fun and active than a regular vanilla sock. It is an eyelet stitch that's angled. I'm not even going to begin to try to show you, but I'm playing with it primarily because I'm testing stitches for our design along. No, I have not decided what my design project is going to be. I'm really just toying around at this point. I haven't decided if it's going to be a sock or a hat, but that's where I'm leaning toward. I'm actually leaning a little bit stronger toward a hat. But in the meantime, instead of just knitting a regular vanilla sock, I'm toying with this stitch as I go, and I'm having great fun with it. It's keeping me active and awake instead of nodding off while knitting in the round, and it's gone really fast. I knit all of this yesterday, which doesn't look like a lot maybe to some of you, but for somebody who hasn't knit, this is a lot, and I'm really excited. So that's the pretty girl at the front of the parade, and she's waving and smiling. Following her up, there's going to be a lot of reaching here, guys. I'm sorry, there's a lot of projects here. Following her up is my Squircle socks. This pattern is by General Hogbuffer. This is a pattern I have been working through my physical therapy, and I used in order to help teach myself a new technique. Part of my problem, I had a torn rotator cuff and I had impingement syndrome in my right shoulder. That made knitting very painful. It made life painful. And I, as a right-handed English knitter, I put a lot of energy into my right shoulder and my right arm while I'm knitting because I throw. To combat that and to keep me knitting so I didn't fall into a dark depression, I taught myself the Portuguese knitting method, which is tensioned either through a pin or by putting the yarn around your neck, which I've actually been doing more lately. The particular technique really makes purling incredibly easy because the yarn is already coming from the front and you're flicking it with your left thumb. Really wonderful. To embed the technique, I decided to do a whole project in the Portuguese knitting, and I decided to do the Squircle socks, which I think is a fun, beautiful pattern, and I'll show you in a minute. But I also opted to rework the pattern because it's primarily a vanilla sock. It is just stockinette, but I reworked the entire pattern to do it inside out so that I could make use of the purling. And here is the second sock, and you're seeing the purl side, which I have valiantly been doing in the Portuguese knitting style, And it's got this really great feature where it has a very narrow, very long heel flap. Very narrow. It's like 6 stitches. And because of that, it does a double decrease for a long way before it gets to the regular gusset, and does a regular gusset before it goes to the foot. And it makes this really neat. I'm sure you can see here this, doing it totally backwards, 90-degree angle, so that your self-striping socks have this really neat striping feature in it. As you can see with this particular sock, I am down onto the foot. I really only have a couple more inches of foot before I can start my toe, and this pair will be done. Here is the first sock, and I showed you this really pretty good last episode where I put it on a sock blocker, which I don't have available to me right now, to show you the back side. Let's see if I can turn this to show you how that heel does this really cool angling of the colors. I'm just tickled with it. I think it's a neat look, and honestly, it's one of the best fitting socks I've ever knit. It fits my foot really, really well. I have a high instep, that's this measurement here, across from the heel to the top of your foot. And having that extra long heel flap, even narrow, really made a difference. It really made a difference. And it's not, I'm not getting all the extra clumping here when I put it on my foot that I often get when I try to adapt a sock for my high instep. If you've got a high instep, if you've got a thick foot through this area here, give it a try. It's a free pattern, Squircle on Ravelry by General Hogbuffer. I love that name. I have no idea what it refers to, but the other patterns all have this neat geometric, he or she, I'm sorry, does a variety of designs that make use of some interesting math, and there's a couple others there that I'm going to have to try when I don't know. I don't have time for all the things I want to do. Anyway, that is the beginning of the parade. That is the front of the line. Then you have the marching band, and the marching band are those projects that they have their duty and they're marching forward nicely and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, resolutely in a line, chugging along, playing their song. Of those, I have a pair of acrylic socks that I'm knitting. This is part of me bringing in more attention to the commercial yarns that are available and the acrylics that people are using, and giving myself some extra exposure to them and being able to give you some information about how these hold up against some of the indie dyed yarns, against some of the other commercially produced wool yarns, and pound for pound, dollar for dollar, what my impression is of these products. I got online to joann.com and I ordered from Premier Yarns a wool-free sock yarn. This is the yarn. They're in little 50-gram balls. The colors are quite pretty. At least they are on the ball. And the picture of how they should knit up is actually really, really pretty. It's very, I don't know if you can see, there's kind of a glare. There's a little sock there with stripes on it. And the picture online was very pretty. Now I'm going to start by saying, if you order from joann.com, joann.com is not Amazon. You will not have instant gratification. You will not see your yarn quickly. If you order online for in-store pickup, fabulous. The majority of the yarns that I found there did not have that available to them. This was not available for in-store pickup. 2 weeks it took to get my product. Now, I understand if I order online, legally they have 4 to 6 weeks to deliver. I am spoiled rotten, and I have no problem admitting that. 2-day delivery is where my head is at, and when it got to be a week old, I checked my order and it hadn't processed yet. And when it got to be a week and a half order in, it had processed and they were supposed to ship the next day, and then they shipped, and it really only took 2 days for it to travel to me, but their process is slow. So their prices are great, absolutely. Joanne is a good name. I believe in them. I suspect their customer service is probably quite good. I haven't had to use it, but online ordering is slow, so be patient if you order online from them. Regardless, I have cast on a toe up vanilla sock using this yarn, and I'm trying to, it's buried in my, I don't know how I guess, oh, because my physical therapy tubing is on top of it. So, I have cast on a toe up sock. I'm not really thrilled with how the stripes are forming. It's not bad. I'm not sure. It doesn't match the picture well. So sometimes I had a preconceived idea of what it was going to look like. And it looks different from that, so I'm a little meh. The colors are definitely my colors. They're autumnal. There's kind of a purple, there's a little bit of a navy, there's a brown, a beige, an orange, a chartreuse. It is ultimately pretty. It's pretty. The hand on this is squishy and lovely. It is a tight spun acrylic. Let's see, 93% acrylic, 7% PBT. Proprietary blended something or other, tencel or something. No idea. No idea what PBT is. Of course, machine wash and dry, 235 yards over 50 grams. It's a synthetic, absolutely, and you can feel that it's a synthetic, but it's not a squeaky synthetic. It is not a sticky synthetic. It's very smooth. It's more in line with what you think of with a brushed rayon. It is tightly spun. I'm not having splitting issues. There's probably 16 threads that are combed and twisted in the, I'm trying to look at it over my finger with my glasses, and my age is showing. There's probably 16 threads twisted in that. It's multiply. Let's see if I can untwist a little bit of it. No, it's probably closer to 8. But because they're twisted so tightly, and because it's combed and it's so smooth, it is actually very soft and lovely. I have not had any discomfort or distaste about working with these. I'm a little bit concerned about the breathability. That's me and my big sweaty feet. That's me. But we'll find out. We will find out. I am knitting toe up on purpose so that I can go as far up my leg as possible using my 50 gram skein. These are going to ultimately be at least mid-calf. These are going to be, depending on how breathable they are, these may be deep winters or these may be chilly springs. I'm excited about it and I'm enjoying the project. What I'm not excited about is I haven't done a toe up in so long, I'm not really sure where to start my gusset. And I do a reverse French heel on this, so it is a heel flap. I build a gusset, I turn a heel, and then I build the flap, which I really enjoy and fits my foot well. I just need to sit down and do some math. So all of a sudden this one's a little bit stalled. I need to sit down and do the math. But I'm really enjoying it, and I do recommend this yarn. Again, this was Premier Yarns wool-free sock, and I do not remember how much I paid for it. If I had to guess, I would say it was about $3.99 a 50. So $8 for a pair of socks in some fun bright colors. The self-stripings, again, a self-striping like this would be so cool on the Squircle socks. So if you happen to grab some of these and you're thinking, yeah, vanilla sock, but I wish it had something extra, try the Squircles. Just too much fun. So, marching band, that is my unnamed acrylic socks. I need to create a project page for that. Then I have my giant project bag, my Venetian Dream sweater, which had been a hard camper during my rehab. However, she's marching along very nicely. I'm very excited. I have a progress marker. I'm digging for it. I'm sorry. Yeah, haha, further down than I thought. That's my progress keeper right there. And I did all this in the round to here. And then this is the front bottom lace section is knit from the top down. That's why I'm holding things upside down. And I have one more repeat of the lace before I do the garter and bind off. And then I do the back separated section. I have collectively knit on this. I did 2 inches in the round, and then I have done better part of 6 inches on the front half. Yes! I will wear this sweater someday. It's actually moving along really fast. I have 6, 10, I have 17 rows left on the front before I bind off, and then I do the back, and then it's sleeves and the neckline, and I'm done. I did have a little bit of a panic last night. I was working on it. I only did like 3 rows last night, where I had knit the body from the top down, alternating between 2 skeins. This, if you're following along, my project page for this is the Memoir sweater, and this is the yarn that I bought when I was in Maine visiting my mother. This is, like I said, the Venetian Dream pattern, and this is by Josee Paquin. I love her patterns. They're well written. They fit me nicely without a lot of alterations. The only alteration I have to make is armhole depth. But this stalled really hard. This really hung back for a long time. I just couldn't knit on it, and my gauge was all wonky doing the Portuguese knitting. And now that I can knit the way I normally knit and my gauge is matching up, I'm making good progress on it. But last night I gave myself a scare. I had been working it alternately because it is a hand-dyed yarn that's variegated back and forth between 2 skeins as I work down through the body. When I got to the divide for the front and the back, because it has a split hemline, I worked 2 for a while down the front flap in the stockinette section, and then when I got to the lace, I reverted to using just 1. And it's not pooling, I'm not seeing a problem with it. It looks nice. I'm happy with it, and I don't feel like, I think the lace and the yarn are balancing nicely. It's a very subtle lace that really adds more visual texture, and it's not totally being drowned out by the pattern of the yarn, but it's not fully visible either. It's a nice balance, I think. I'm happy with it. I didn't lose it entirely. You can tell that there's lace there. However, like I said, I was working along with just 1 of the skeins and it ran out. And so I picked up the other bit that I had been using for the body, and I'm using that, and there'll be enough to finish the front flap. I don't know that there'll be enough to finish the back flap before I need to start a fresh skein of yarn. I bought 4 skeins of this yarn. I always have it in my head, and I think this is a conservative habit of mine, to believe that half of the yarn needs to be reserved for sleeves and finishing for collars and such. And I think that's aggressive. I think it's a conservative statement to be sure that I have enough. So the idea that I am going to be more than halfway through my yarn when I finish the body scared me. And I stopped dead last night. How am I going to get more of this yarn? And I did the math, and I looked at my pattern, and what I found interesting about my pattern and my initial math, because clearly my head was not screwed on when I cast this on, I go through and I circle the instructions for the size that I've chosen. And I actively circled the yardage that I would need, right there, the yardage that I would need for the size that I was doing, except it's not yardage, it's the meterage. The yardage is listed down secondary to it. So although I circled 1530 thinking yards because I work in yards, I actually circled 1530 meters, and the yardage is 1485. That's there's a significant difference in those numbers. So I pulled out my skeins and I looked at the yardage for each skein, and I have plenty. I have plenty. And then of course I did that other secondary panic that designers do, where we go, there's generally a 10% variance from one knitter to the other. I can't remember if this is on gauge or if I'm doing the size appropriate to the gauge I got because I like the fabric. Even with a 10% variance, I'm good. So I'm in good shape, and I'm soldiering on proudly and excitedly. And although I won't be wearing this sweater for spring because, as many of the Americans watching know, and some Canadians, we have not had spring. We have had winter, and we're just going to skip spring and go right to summer. It's either snowing or it's 80, and whatever. So I think this will be very pretty in the fall. And I'm looking forward to wearing it with brown corduroys and turtlenecks and a nice olive green chino. And I love this sweater. I love it. I love the yarn, I love the sweater, I love the whole thing, and I can't wait to finish it to show you guys. I do highly recommend Josee Paquin's patterns. They are beautiful. I knit her Jen pattern. Forgive me, I'm dropping things. And now I'm knitting this pattern, and it's a delight. It's a delight. Very well written, nice construction. One of the things that oddly I find myself looking for in sweater patterns, I do like the in the round seamless top down construction. What I hate, and I don't like to use the word hate, it's really, really strong and really judgmental, but I hate patterns that use instructions at the same time. It's not about the pattern. It's not about the pattern. It's about me. At the same time, now mind you, I multitask. I multitask great. I'm doing laundry and dishes right now. At the same time. However, when I'm knitting, I'm kind of a single instruction girl. When I have to think about armholes and V-necks, and I get overwhelmed, I get stressed, I start to question things, I fall apart. I fall apart. At the same time, scares me to death. So her patterns don't have that. They don't have that. It's really about delivery. It's about how it's written. There are things that I'm doing at the same time, but because we're not saying at the same time, instead we're just giving a linear instruction, I can handle it, no problem. It's really about presentation, and if you have pattern fears, if you've got some instructions that just make you buggo, look for patterns that don't do that. They're out there. They're out there. So next in line, marching through my parade, are the townies. You know them. They're all the businesses and things that you're familiar with, and they're always there, and they're reliable, and you can turn to them if you need them. But you don't see them every day. You miss them. You wish you could see them every day, but you don't see them every day. In that list, I have my Daelyn sweater. Hey, I grabbed the right bag. All right. Yeah. My Daelyn sweater is my purple acrylic sweater. The Daelyn pattern is a pay-to-play pattern that I bought on Ravelry. Let me see. I'm so sorry. I should know the names of all my designers, and I don't. Isabell Kraemer. And really a pretty design. Sorry, this has been smashed into my project bag and carried with me. It's a pretty design. It's knit in the round, top down, seamless, and it has garter stitch all the way down the back, and it has an interesting angle that comes from under the arm toward the front, where the garter comes around at an angle on the front that's very slimming. It's very nice. And the front is regular stockinette and the sleeve is regular stockinette, but it just has this angle that comes around that from the front slims the body line. I don't know how well you can see that. There's kind of a close picture of the photo. Certainly look at it online. The schematic indicates where that angle comes in, and it just trims the waistline for you. It's very pretty. Well-written pattern, easy to do. I'm doing it in my Vanna's Choice in purple. I need an everyday sweater. I need a sweater that after work, when I come home and I throw on my PJ bottoms, and I usually throw on a fleece or some kind of sweater or something that can stand up to dinner on the sofa, half asleep, and my dogs. And this is it. I have the yarn on hand. I'm excited to work with it. Finally, it's been in my store forever, and here it is. I haven't gotten much further than the last time I talked to you guys about it. I need to do a couple more rounds before I divide off the arms and the body. I have, like I said, a deep armhole measurement, and the gauge on this is different than I normally get with the same weight in wool on the same needles. First off, it's a little bit heavier than a worsted. It's closer to an Aran. I am knitting it relatively dense. I do want a nice thick sweater. I get cold, and I am not talking, oh, I'm chilly. I'm talking, I have an electric blanket on my sofa in my spot, and I put on wool socks, and I usually wear a big thick sweater as well as my thermal jammy bottoms, and I will still shake. I get cold. Part of that is me detoxing the stress of my work environment and coming home. And part of it is I'm one of those people, I don't retain weight well. I retain weight just fine. I don't retain heat well. So I'm excited to have a nice, thick, bulky, big sweater. And I love the color. I love the color. It's not the best color on me. I love it. I don't care. It's for me at home. The gauge also is affected not only by the variance in the general weight, but also in that it's acrylic. And acrylic ultimately wants to stay straight. It's a plastic product. It doesn't want to bend and curl, much like it was on the animal where it was bendy and curly, like a wool does. So that does affect, it affects your row height, interestingly enough. So a couple more rounds on this, and maybe it'll move forward into the marching band section of the parade, but right now it's in the townie selection where it's just kind of hanging out. I'm enjoying it. I love it. If I had 8 hands, I could get so much more knitting done. I really could. Also in the townie section of my parade is my Adventurous wrap. I love this design. I love this design. This is available on Ravelry. The designer is Amba O'Brien, and it is a really neat construction where she is taking 2 triangular shawls and putting them together to make a giant rhombus wrap. And I don't have a great picture for you. That's what it is. I refer to this on my project page as my I Blame Carolyn, because my dear friend Carolyn knit one of these in advance of me, and I loved hers so much that I ran and played with yarns and sorted out my colors. It's kind of a fade. It's written for, I believe, either 5 or 7 colors. No, I'm sorry, it's an advent calendar. It's written to be used with up to 25 colors. It's beautiful. I love it. I love it. I am exactly 50%. Exactly 50%. And I love the colors that I used. ever amazed at how different they look on camera than they look on person. The camera just punches it up and makes it look really, really stripy, whereas in person it's a little bit more blended. Maybe it's perspective, who knows. It's lovely. I am very excited about it. I can't wait to wear it. This is going to end up living, I suspect, in my office at work, because I work in a hospital and they're pretty convinced that the temperature constantly needs to be between 68 and 70 degrees, and I ultimately live very happily at 76 to 78 degrees, so I'm always cold. I'm always cold. And that temperature does not change winter to summer. I do have a progress marker in it from the last time I showed it to you to where I am. Progress marker is right here, so I did about that much of the triangle. I got that side bound off, and this side is open and waiting for the next instruction, and I need to knit the other triangle. I was very excited the other night. I came running in here thinking, oh, I'm gonna cast that second half on and get that moving. I want to get this done because right now it's really, really chilly in my office at work. They've got the air conditioner on and the temperature outside is still going 60, 80, 60, 80, it doesn't know. So I ran in here, I grabbed my project bag with all the yarns and everything, and I looked real quick at this, and I have the miscellaneous pages that don't relate to the option that I'm knitting. The pattern has a couple of different options, and I have no idea whatsoever where my working option pattern is. None. I've dug around, I've cleaned, I'm still looking. You know, when you lose something, you start looking for it, and until you resolve that problem, until you find it, or until you have given up and replaced it, you keep looking. Your subconscious is still, and you get like antsy. I'm still there. It's been 2 days of this nonsense. I need to just print off the other copy. And then I can cast that on. When I'm going to do this, I don't know. I don't know. I'm dreaming, I think. Also in the towny section of my parade, and again, these are the reliables. They're always there. They're a satisfying knit. It's something that I can go to when I need it, and you kind of take them for granted, unfortunately. In my towny parade selection, I have, of course, my How to Eat an Elephant blanket. I'm not even gonna bother opening it. It's tied to the basket, the work basket that all my scraps are in. This is my fingering weight. Ooh, it's getting dusty. Ah! Oh, I need to either package this in a project bag. It's got dog hair on it. Whoa! I don't know why this bothers me. It's not like it's not gonna have dog hair on it when I use it. This is reality, folks. It's a fingering weight blanket, and I'm doing it with black frames worked in. My project page on Ravelry does have all of my notes so that you can do the same thing. It's not a pattern so much as it is a formula. Certainly, if you love the look of this and you're not on Ravelry, you're welcome to email me, and I will send you a copy of the formula. But I'm using leftover bits of sock yarn, and I'm framing them in black, so it's very much like stained glass. It is not modular so much as I'm making the individual squares and sewing them together. It's a pick up and add on project. So each one of these squares I'm picking up stitches, and I work just that square, and then I pick up stitches and I work just that square. I refer to it as my How to Eat an Elephant blanket because how to eat an elephant? One bite at a time, and each one of these is one bite. A square I have timed out if I'm watching TV and I'm not aggressively working on it. Takes anywhere between 45 to an hour. I love them. I enjoy it so much. Every one of these squares has a memory attached to it, and it just makes me happy. It's going to be a great big beautiful blanket. I have not worked on it in a long time, and I do have guilt about that. I can't even believe it's starting to get dusty. That means it's been sitting way too long, and I need to at least give it a shake out and a refold. But now that I'm knitting actively again, it sits by my spot and I need to try to get back on it. Otherwise, I'm not going to live long enough to finish this. I have really an aggressive idea of how big I want the end product to be, so I need to get to work on it. That's moving on nicely. How many projects have I talked to you guys about? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 whips. We're only halfway through the parade. Next in line is that elusive girl with the pretty smile that waves at the crowd as she goes by on her float. And she's been crowned, she's important, but she's unattainable somehow. Yeah, my view of parades is probably kind of slanted. That particular project is not on the needles. And I feel kind of bad about calling it a whip because I need to at least cast it on. It's the farmhouse shawl. Y'all have seen me wear this. There's a hand spun in here if I remember correctly, and because it is not a widely available yarn, the gauge is going to be different, and there are a couple of notes from my pattern design that are missing that I need to sort out, and the only way that I'm going to correct the gauge and correct this missing note is to reknit it. I love this design. This is one of my favorite designs. It is it's a 3-sided square, ultimately, with a hole in the middle, designed in, so that it wraps beautifully around in a number of ways, and it has a little bit of lace, it has a little bit of striping. It's warm, it's lovely, it's flexible, it's comfortable, it can be dressed up, dressed down, tucked under a jacket, and just because of the way I handled the neckline, it fits and drapes better than your average triangular wrap, whatever. I am very excited about this design. Not excited enough, apparently, because I haven't cast it on yet, and there are a number of you. Thank you for staying on me. Thank you. It actually helps. Going, when is that going to be available for testing? I really love that. I'd be more than happy to test that for you. I know, and I really want to give it to you. It's that elusive girl in the parade that they crowned the parade princess or queen, and she's waving and she's going by on her float, and it's totally unattainable. We're gonna get there. We are gonna get there. We're doing a design along, and I have a deadline on our group design along, and anybody can jump in anytime. Feel free. We did a vote, and we picked a theme, and our theme is connection, and that means a lot to me. I'm thrilled at the participation that we've had. I'm excited to see what you guys do. Please go over to the threads on Ravelry and post your progress, or join in the conversation about how your design process works, how your brain works. We're curious. I'm always interested in seeing how other people think. Ultimately, I feel like I should be doing a new and unique design in order to participate in this. However, even in my own rules, I said that it could be something that you already have in process at any various stage that you just need to flesh all the way out. And ultimately what we need is a completed end product, whether it is a hat or socks or a scarf or a cowl, whatever you decide to enter in the drawing for the giveaway at the end of the design along. All you need to have by September 1st is a completed object that you have designed. Easy enough, right? I've had it in my head that I should be doing a new and unique design that you guys have never seen before. I have a connection to you folks, And I have a number of people that have reached out to me that want to connect with this pattern. And I have a connection to it. I want to do it, and I keep putting it aside for other priorities. Right here, right now. Here it is, guys. I'm making the decision. This is it. Here it is. This is going to be my design project. And as I'm burbling here and trying to flesh out what my definition is, what I need to dedicate myself to, part of this was that when I dyed up some yarns for it, I had dyed colors that it wasn't just a pair of colors, and there were a couple of options that were 3 color options, and I was saying at the time that I would like to redesign this pattern so that you had the option of either a 2 or 3 color option. Here it is. I'm throwing down the gauntlet for all the ideas that I've had for new designs. This is going to be my priority. I am going to finish this pattern design. I'm going to re-knit this. And my goal, now I'm scaring myself, is to knit not only the 2 color version, but the 3 color version for September 1st. I don't remember hitting my head. And I made my own breakfast, so I'm pretty sure I haven't been poisoned or drugged. But here it is. This is what we're going to do. So the farmhouse shawl is going to be my connection design project. I'm going to pull the pieces together and we're going to do this. We're going to do this. There it is. Okay, the elusive girl in the parade is going to be my design project. And with a little luck, because I'm ambitious and crazy, I will have time to do another design as well. I hear you laughing. It's okay. All right. The next stage of your parade is the fire and rescue with their blaring horns and showing off their really cool new equipment and everything, and they're trying to get your attention, but you don't use them very often, we hope. And so they are really quite forgotten, but when you look at them, you get the and you realize, oh, I really should pay attention to this. On that list of wonderful things in my parade, we're going to start with the one that blares at me the loudest. Another fantastic pattern. I absolutely adore the work of Zandy Peters. Her brain works in ways and directions that I only wish I had the time to explore. I wish my brain worked that way. I wish I was that innovative in my pattern design. Zandy's designs are gorgeous, and one of her earlier patterns, I'm sure she has a plethora of patterns since then. I do follow her and I see her stuff on Instagram, and her knitting goes in every direction possible. The beauty of her work is that she creates a color work with a very strong visual punch that is, I'm not going to say easy to achieve, but the color work doesn't require stranding. You're only working one color at a time. And because of the stacked increases and decreases techniques that she uses, you get an amazing visual punch. This was one of her earlier designs. It is called Fox Paws, and I have worked on it with some gusto initially, and I am a couple repeats in, and I love this. It's ultimately going to be a wide scarf or kind of a wrap. The colors turn me on. I chose these. I love them. They are very 70s kitchen. There's eggplant, and there is avocado, and there's a chartreuse, and a mustard, and a burnt orange in here. And I love the way the stitches interplay. I'm showing it to you sideways. This is actually how the knitting progresses. It's beautiful. It's beautiful, and you only work one color at a time. I'm so turned on by this. I love this. I want to work on this For 2 years now, I've been thinking, oh, I can't wait to wear this winter. I love the visual. I think it's going to be just a beautiful accessory. It is a pay freaking attention pattern, and I'm not even joking. I think she has since come out with charting to handle the increases and decreases, because it is stacked, and visually to chart this is complex. So unfortunately, and I should check to see if there's been an update to the pattern, but unfortunately it is written out line for line. And I'm sorry, I would show you line for line, but I cannot remember if this is a pay to play or not. And the line for line has, because it's a unique technique, it has some complex abbreviations in it, like KYOKSB2 versus K5 together SBK3 tog. There's just a lot of knit togethers and creating and repeats, and there's a ton of brackets, and you know, do this instruction 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. It's complex. It's complex. It is not ultimately difficult. Now that I've scared you half to death, it's not ultimately difficult. I'm a visual knitter, and I love charts. I love charts. I am not a big fan of written instruction. By the time I've focused on the right line and figured out where in that line I am, I go back to my knitting and I get confused. Did I already do this? Okay, read through, I did this, I did this, I did this, I need to do this instruction next. I go back, wait a minute, was that, or maybe okay, I've done this, and I'm reading my knitting, and I'm reading, and yeah, I hate it. I hate it. I much prefer to see the visual representation in front of me and see the chart representation and convert between those two, and it makes more sense. That's just how my brain works. So I need to check and see if maybe she's done a chart update on this so that I can get the chart on it. It would be easier for me to do. I think I'm 3 reps in, and I think I have, I don't know, I have a lot to go. I have a lot to go. I mean, that's hardly a wrap. It's 16 inches. I need to do this at least 4, maybe 5 more times. I want to work on it. Part of my hesitation is, like I said, it's pay freaking attention. Each row, there's a few rows that are pretty straight and easy that only take a few, you know, pass through a row. There's other rows that were taking me 45 minutes a row because of me having to relate to it. I need to sit down. I need to figure out where I left off. I need to read my knitting. I need to figure out what line I was on before I can pick up again. I know that that's an hour of my life right there. And once I have that hour of my life accomplished where I sort out where I am and where I'm headed, then I'm a little terrified that the next row was one of the 45-minute rows, because why would I have stopped where I did if I could have just knocked out another 15-minute row? That's who I am. That's what I do. I stop at the next complex point. I really want to do this. It's a matter of time, and I sort of need a traffic jam or a long wait in a doctor's office or something to push me there, and even then I would be not in the right frame of mind. I love this, and I will someday accomplish it. It's on my radar. It's on my radar. I'm gonna do this. I promise. I promise. I promise myself. Also, in the deep projects, I have my overflow shawl. This is also a design in progress. I have one that is completed that I love, but I wasn't thrilled with the yarn choice that I had or the size that I did. It's a little bit smaller than I wanted it to be. I am re-knitting it in another yarn, and it has been on the needles forever. It is called Overflow. It is a bauble shawl in a lace weight. It's lovely and it's huge. Once this is blocked out, it's going to be a nice, big, beautiful drapey shawl. It is a 2-color shawl. It does this beautiful bauble texture down through. It is a 3/4 square, much like the farmhouse, but it doesn't have the neck cut out here, where the farmhouse has the squared cutout. This one does not. And its size makes up for the lack of neck hole, so that you've got very long arms on it to wrap around with. It dissolves down from baubles like rain falling into a wavy pattern at the bottom in a lighter color. I have a couple more reps of the wave pattern that need to go on, and then the final edge, which reverts back to the primary color. I'm not entirely sure why I stopped where I stopped. I have a suspicion. And the suspicion is directly related to, I was toying with making a change to my pattern. You can see my raggedy notes. Where I was thinking that I might do a thicker edge in the primary color than the original that was going to be more of a row and a bind off. It was a design change temptation. And I think I was looking for more balance rather than having it look like I ran out of the master color and just tacked on the lighter color at the bottom. I don't want the pattern to look that way. I want it to balance. And that's why I'm of the belief that it needs to have at least 2 more repeats of the lace edge before I do a tie back in. I'm also thinking, based on the notes that I reviewed this morning and the little scribble down at the bottom, that I was actually thinking about having it stripe in a little bit, so that there was going to be a couple more repeats of the light color, a thinner line of we'll call it the navy, and then back into the seafoam, and then the navy, and then the seafoam, and then the bind off. That may have been where I was. Design changes on the fly can be wonderful, and beautiful things come out of it because you're seeing the project at full size. And that gives you a different perspective than when you have a swatch and you're trying to judge what is this swatch going to look like when it is 5 feet across. Being able to take the project, drape it over, and see where the lines are landing, see what the visual impact is of the striping, makes a huge difference. And adding things or editing on the fly like that can make or break a project. They really can. So they can also make or break the knitter. They can make or break the knitter. If I decide to play with this, and I'm quite sure this is why this was stalled, I have lifelines thrown in. If you're not familiar with lifelines, a lifeline is basically like saving your Word document before you make more edits, so that if you don't like the edits, you can go back to the last save point really easily without having to, you can just go back. And a lifeline works exactly like that. For lace weights like this, my lifelines are dental floss, and I have the ability to attach them to the needle that I'm using, and on the next row through, take the dental floss in through with me, and it saves that line, so that if anything goes wrong after that point, I can drop back down to that line and easily pick up those stitches. Very clever, very smart technique. I highly recommend them if you're making edits to, say, a sweater, or if you're designing and you're kind of designing on the needles. Use lifelines. Use lifelines. If you have a new pattern that you're unfamiliar with, that you're not totally comfortable working, or if you're working lace for the first time, use your lifelines. Put them in on one of your rest rows where you just happen to only knit or only purl across. It's nice and easy. They're easy to pick back up. For a project of this size, and I'm going to make a loose eyeball guess, I'm going to say I got 500 stitches on this. I'm going to say there's 500 stitches on these needles. There's a lot. There's a lot. And that may be conservative. This may be closer to 700 stitches. Yes, I can throw a lifeline. Yes, I can zap across a couple of the navy, throw in a couple of the seafoam, look at it again and go, I should have put in 3 rows, and pull back. And you're talking about hours of dedicated editing on the needles. And I think that's why I stopped working on this, was I wanted to really flesh it out and have it clean in my head before I continued knitting and notating. I've been far enough removed from this pattern, and I'm talking 2 years this has been sitting by. If I had to make a loose guess, I probably haven't touched this in 2 years. I am so far removed from my original thought pattern on this that I'm actually eager to pick this back up, because my vision is different, my goals are different, my thoughts about it are different, and I have a different appreciation for the work that's gone into this, and I'm not so mentally stuck on I gotta get it done. I'm more on, I'm curious where this is going to end up. So this one's yelling at me. It's blaring at me. It's the brand new ambulance in the town hall that they're showing off the equipment on, and I need to apply some attention to this and get this done. Never mind that I personally think it's an absolutely lovely design, and I am looking forward to wearing it. I'm excited by it. I like it. And I'm curious to see what other people think of it. So, overflow. Moving on. I've got project bags everywhere. This is embarrassing. So, also in my have been on the needles forever, my Dark Hero socks. I love this yarn. I think this yarn is stunning. This is one of Shannon Shaw's yarns. Shannon is Supernatural Yarns. Really beautiful colors. It is blacks and navies and rusty reds. It's kind of like, some of you may have memory of, it's like Dark Superman. It's like when Superman was evil or something. It does a beautiful spiraling stripe up the leg. I initially cast these on trying to make socks for my husband. In the leg of the sock, because he's got little skinny ankles, I carried an elastic thread, and you can just barely see it there. It's an elastic carry-along to really give it some stretch and rebound, and it sucks right back in, as you can tell. The elastic character that it adds to that is wonderful. Sadly, ultimately, I got down through this whole thing and discovered that what I was trying to achieve for socks for my husband, this was not fulfilling. He has a really, really big instep, and this sock is not accommodating that. I did ultimately finally knit him a pair of socks. They fit him wonderful. I have his formula finally, but these were a failed test. And if I remember correctly, they were a failed test on him, but they fit me. And my thought was, I love the yarn. I love the yarn. And I don't really want to rip them out to knit him another pair. So I wanted him to have this yarn. But I don't want to rip it all out to knit it again. I've got more than 3/4 of a sock here. So I thought I would just finish knitting them for me. But I stopped so that I could attack the sock problem from another angle and get him a pair of socks, because that was my goal. I wanted to knit him socks. And you can tell because I only have 2 double-pointed needles here, and there are no other double-pointed needles in my project bag. This yarn, if you're loving the colorway, it's called They're Screwing with the Wrong People. Shannon, I love you. It's on her Sprite sock base. It's 100% superwash merino, 4-ply, 438 yards, over 100 grams. Super natural yarns. You can find her on Etsy. She is wonderful. She really was my mentor in starting my company. Shannon, I love you so much. I hope everything good for you, always. And she supports me. We have really we have a great relationship. She is going to be vending very soon. I believe it's, I don't remember the name of the show she's vending at. I want to say it's in Kansas City, but don't hold me to that. I'm delusional. And she's actually made up kits using some of my patterns with my permission, and I'm very excited and very honored by that. Shannon, thank you. I love this yarn. I need to finish these socks. I get sidetracked because I had a goal and this wasn't meeting the goal, so I set it aside to reach goal. And I'm supposed to be knitting socks for myself this year, so I need to bump these up in class. So clearly they are also in the fire and rescue part of my parade where they're blaring at me. I need to pay attention. This one hurts me. This one hurts me. I have a project that I started 3 years ago. I think it's been 3 years. And I stopped because I made a error in my stitch count. I suspected that I had an error in my stitch count, that I hadn't been paying attention when I did one of the charts. This is a design that was inspired by a dear friend of mine, and I have great guilt over it because I really wanted to finish this design. It's very much dedicated to my friend, and it's very important to me. It's inspired by her, it's inspired by our time together, and I really want to get it done. It's another one of these where I am going to have to sit down and sort out where I am. If in fact there is an error, there may not even be an error, and get on it. I need to get on it. I'm saying 3 years, and now that I think of it, it may be more than that. It may be, it's probably 4. It's probably 4. It's beautiful. I'm excited by it. I love it. It is a design. It's a design that I was charting and knitting at the same time. And it uses a variety of lace stitches that have been inspired by the architectural features of old Santa Fe. Santa Fe is a very beautiful, very, it's a very feminine city, which is a strange way to explain a city, but there's a very feminine air to it. It's very empowered and it's very lacy. How do you express the city? There's a lot of wrought iron, and of course there's the turquoise and the beautiful Southwest architecture and landscape, and it's all built on rolling hills, and you have little pockets and niches of beautiful, beautiful small communities all drawn together. It's also extremely art heavy. It is consistently rated the worst dressed city in America. And I think that is because of the creativity and the boldness and the fearless experimentation that happens there. People mix styles very quickly and without a lot of consideration, and I've seen some outfits, believe it, but I've also seen some really interesting things that turned my head and made me think differently about things. It can be a very inspiring city. It's a very inspiring community. I'm very fortunate that I live an hour away. I don't visit it often enough. But my friend and I used to visit it, and we'd go up. We were ladies that lunched and shopped, and there were a couple different yarn stores up there that are no longer there. The death of local yarn shops really is just desperately saddening. But in our adventures up there and looking at the architecture and the gardens and shopping and everything, this was inspired, and I'm going to bend to grab it. It's far away. And it's called the Duchess of Santa Fe because it is in this beautiful gold color, and it really has all these laces that are inspired, like I said, by the architecture, and it uses a horizontal braid stitch to divide them. Very much representative of the tile that you see everywhere. And I love it. It's designed, it needs to block, but it's not even done. It's going to be a big biased wrap. This is the beginning of it, and it advances, and those sections each get longer across because it's all biased, and then eventually it turns the corner and starts to bias in the other direction. So you start out with very few stitches, and you build in a triangle out to the turning point before you start to increase and decrease at matching rates to angle off so that the section is straight but angled. Does that make sense? The stitches are angled, but the section actually progresses straight. It's beautiful. I love it. I have it on waste yarn. As you can tell, I farmed it for the needle, and I put it on waste yarn because I was concerned about the stitch count and what was happening. It is multiple skeins of fingering weight yarn. Again, this is a Shannon Shaw Supernatural Wools, Supernatural Yarns, I keep saying her name wrong, colorway. This particular yarn is called Belle, Beauty and the Beast. It's this gorgeous gold. I just love it. It's on her nymph sock. It's 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon, 120 yards, 30 grams. I think that's the wrong tag for this. She would have, this is a 100-gram yard. Let me double check her note here. No, that's what she labeled it with. I think she was just getting the nymph sock out and used her mini 30-gram mini label for me. Because I had ordered 2 skeins, and I realized 2 skeins were not going to be enough for this project, and that I ultimately needed at least 4. And it is a hand dyed, so I am alternating back and forth so you don't get a big line indicating that it was a different pot batch. It's beautiful. I love it. It's difficult to see because it does need to be blocked. I'm not sure how well it's going to hold its block because the stitches are very elastic, and I've used a superwash with nylon, which is more likely to rebound to its natural state than a whole wool that I can block the bajingies out of and it'll stay. Aggressive blocking does wonders. You never know. It could work. Like I said, somewhere in here, when you do the horizontal banding, I'm trying to increase on one side and decrease on the other, and it naturally does that, and I may have made a mistake at some point in that stitching, and I think my stitch count came off, and I think I figured it out in the next row of lace. I need to sit down and I need to research my project and I need to figure it out. And I have the pattern and the charts all worked out so that I know the order of each of the laces and what each of the laces meant to me. It's getting back to that point to look at it again and sort myself out so I can do it. I love this project. I want to finish this project. It makes me happy. And at the same time, it's crushing me that I have not touched this in so long. And I love it. I love it. It's going to be glorious if I would just do it. What is it with us that we have such brilliant big dreams, and sometimes we let our dreams drift away. We shouldn't do that. We shouldn't do that. We hold on to your dreams. Hold on to your dreams. Chase your dreams. Finish your dreams. I'm going to finish my dreams. All right. Then, it's a good thing I made a list. Then at the end of every parade, you have that funny group of stragglers that you're not really sure were part of the parade at all. And you've already gone deaf from, you know, fire and rescue going through, showing off their equipment, and you're like, what's this disbanded group here that's kind of following it? Are they part of the parade, or are they drunk onlookers staggering behind? Mine are drunk onlookers staggering behind. I have a copy of my Ships Ashore shawl that I was working on fingering weight. That was a yarn that I had hand dyed myself. I can't even find it. I tore my studio apart relatively quickly this morning looking for it. I don't know where it is. I went through all the project bags and everything. Obviously, I've dug everything out. I can see it in my head. I remember what it was in last. I cannot locate it. I even remember what needles it was on. It's here somewhere. I need to find it. I need to finish it. It's in a beautiful grass colorway, mixes of greens. It's very pretty. I would like to finish it. I don't know why I have given it up. Well, no, I do. I had to harvest needles from it for something else that I wanted to finish. And therefore it sat, and I haven't put the needle back in it and finished it. I have a hat. It is my Brenda hat. If you look at my patterns, it's my Brenda design. I was re-knitting it just to have another one of them available. Cannot find it. I know it's here somewhere. I'm most disappointed in myself that I apparently have some whips that are, I don't know where they are, and I'm terrified. I'm terrified because whips have a tendency to breed or replicate or something, multiply, and when I do finally find these two projects, there may be 6 or 7 other projects with them, and that just scares me half to death because my list is plenty long enough. At the very tail end, I do have one of said shame projects that I was able to find, which kind of bums me out. I told you I'm a cold person, I'm always frozen, and I forever have cold hands in the car. Driving in the morning, my hands are frozen, and my husband sits there with that I'm a man and I'm brilliant and I know it look on his face, where he's going to say something that is bleeding obvious and point it out and kind of shame me for my own stupidity. It's not malice, it's not malice. But he just looks at me when I'm going, oh my God, my hands are so cold, and he goes, don't you knit? Don't you have an entire room full of wool? Why don't you make yourself some mittens? Why don't you make yourself some gloves? Yeah, you could do this for yourself, and then your hands wouldn't be so cold. Yes, darling, I know. I can't stand making mittens. I can't stand making gloves. I don't know why. I don't mind making a fingerless glove, but for this intents and purposes, it's not going to work. The intent is to warm my fingers, and that means either gloves or mittens. And so I had pulled out a sock yarn that I had bought 100 years ago. It's Patton's Croy Socks FX. It is a what they call a washable wool. We'll call that superwash, and 25% nylon. It is a commercially produced, it's in a 50, I've got a couple of these, and it's a kind of a gradient barber pole that I have on hand, and therefore I should use and make myself gloves, because there's a small undertaking. This would be my progress on said glove. I have the the holding line in here for the thumb, and I have a pinky that is most of the way knit. I think I'm at the point where I needed to figure out the length and then decreases. That's where I'm at. I have guilt about this because I really could use these, and when they're done, I'm going to appreciate them. I gave myself a nice long wrist. It'll tuck up into my jacket. The size is pretty good for me. I don't know that I was following actual instructions. There's no pattern in the bag. There's just the yarn and an octopus of needles. Boy, I own a lot of needles. They're everywhere. It's one of those, I must be following a pattern. It might be Marley Bird's pattern from Craftsy from her Mitts and Gloves class. Because it does the like thumb on the front thing, which I'm questioning the placement of as I have it on my hand with my pinky finger in, that I'm not sure how that's going to work because my thumb doesn't come out of the front of my hand. I'm not thrilled with this. I could readily tear back down and simplify my life and make a mitten, or I could continue with this and learn from it and find out if having the thumb come out at the bone here from the front of a glove actually does articulate over and work. That's a lot of work to figure that out. I could jump and just do the thumb right now and test that. I need to find the pattern that I was using. I need to figure out what instruction I was using. I have no idea what that is. That has gone wholly by the wayside. I need it. It's logical. It makes sense. I'm not thrilled. I'm not thrilled. Like I said, it's the drunk straggler at the end of the parade that you're not sure was actually meant to be on the parade. So I need to make some hard decisions about this, and ultimately I could rip the whole thing back, rewind up that ball, and make something else with it and be very happy. I'm also kind of arguing with myself, obviously, you can see the argument, where I like the gauge of a fingering weight for a mitt or a glove, but I'm not thrilled with the amount of time that goes into it because I don't like making mittens and gloves. So I'm kind of meh. I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it. That concludes. I have a needle. Oh, it was for that. I do remember. Okay. Don't you hate that when you look down and there's spare parts and you're like, where does that go to? That concludes the parade. That concludes the parade, and quite the parade it has been. I'm looking at the counter on my camera, and I'm like, they're gonna have to break this up in parts, or they're gonna have a marathon ahead of them, and I question the smarts behind that. So I'm gonna come back around to the design along. I talked about it briefly when I was talking about the farmhouse shawl, as I, on the fly here, kind of dedicated myself and made the decision that I'm going to work on that as my design along. And I really want to get that done, and I need to flush aside all the shiny things and really finish that. The design along is open to all of you. We did pick a theme, connection, and that's just a jumping off point. That's your inspiration. You can pick your own path. You do what you want. You're the designer. Feel free to post images in the voting thread that you feel inspire connection. There is a thread for chattering questions as well as progress. Come join the conversation and talk to us about how your brain works, how you design. Look at how other people do. Let's converse. Let's talk, and let's see if there are ways that we can improve our flow, or if there's a different way to think about things, or problem solve. If you're stuck on something, throw it on the table and let's see what other people think. There will be a thread for finished objects where you will post a picture of your completed object for your entry, and there will be a prize. I have not figured out if it's one or multiple prizes, and I haven't figured out if we're going to vote, or we're going to have multiple categories, or if we're going to do a random. We'll worry about that. We got until September. I do have an active call for prize donations. If you're feeling generous, if you want to contribute to this, thank you very much. I do appreciate that. I regardless, prizes will happen. There will be prizes. I do very much want to reach out and thank Cappy. Cappy over at The Yarn and I. Cappy has a podcast of her own. She is so entertaining. I recently placed an order with her, and she has lovely yarns, absolutely lovely yarns. This is one of her yarns. Isn't this pretty? I needed more wool desperately, you should see. Really, when I was digging through all of my whips, there's a section in my personal stash. I have 2 closets, and one is my personal stash and one is my stock for my shop. And I had to dig through my personal stash because there's a section in there where I put some of my whips. And I kept pulling yarn out and going, oh, that's gorgeous. That would make a wonderful, oh, isn't that pretty? I forgot that I owned that. Oh, I remember this yarn. I need to knit that with it. I need 20 more sets of arms. I am delusional. Added to my absolutely stunning stash is yet another remarkable gem. This is the Love from Lisa colorway by Cappy at The Yarn and I. Cappy is a talented designer. This yarn is gorgeous. It is 100% superwash merino, 490 yards, over 100 grams. I just love these colors. And I'm looking at this yellow, this beautiful mustard, and I'm thinking again about that wrap that I'm designing, and I'm like, oh, that would coordinate beautifully. Because you have to worry about what socks you're going to knit to wear with your wrap. Really, really beautiful navies and blues and golds and sunny rusty yellows and beautiful this intense kind of Syrah Bordeaux color. Really beautiful. I'm very excited by this. I'm very happy to have gotten this from her. She did gift this to me, and I'm thank you. I can't thank you enough. It's beautiful. She also included with this a little cup of tea. She knows I love that connection where when I sit down to do this, I have that cup of tea ready, and I will have that connection. I'll be thinking about her in a tangible way while I cast on this project and I sip on that tea. Further, she very, very, very graciously gifted me with some progress keepers. Some of these progress keepers, let's make sure I get this right, 2 of them were made by her husband. I believe his name is Brian. She introduced him recently in her podcast. Very talented creator of accessories. I have a pair of really cool hippie jeans. Hopefully you can see that through the cellophane. And a Coca-Cola bottle cap. These are both lovely progress keepers. And from her 80-year-old mother, she makes other beautiful little markers. This is by Marcia. And she sent me 2 of these. Let's see if I can line it up in the camera. And they're these lovely little elephants with a little, the Fatima hand, I believe that's correct, or Namaste hand with a red gem in there. Again, progress keeper, stitch markers, whatever you need to use them for. And I have a note from her saying that the hands and elephants were made by my 80-year-old mother. The Coca-Cola cap and hippie jeans were made by my husband. Choose 2 for you and 2 to give away. Cappy, thank you. You are wonderfully generous. I have not decided which I want to keep. I'm definitely keeping one of the elephants. That is, it's beautiful. It's really beautiful, and that just makes me happy. Sorry, my battery warning just came up. They make me happy. As for the other 2, I can't decide. I can't decide. So when we get closer to the giveaway, I'll sort it out at that point. I am getting a battery warning because I have prattled on forever. It is still ticking up, so we're going to call it good. We're not going to call it good. I'm going to plug it in. We're going to keep going. Because I have something else important that I do want to present to you guys. It's an idea that I had, and I'm really excited about it. I want to see what your feedback is on it, what you think of it. I do my podcast, like I said earlier in the podcast, for my sense of knit community, for my knit group, because I don't have one. And I suspect that a lot of you watch my podcast because we have similar interests, obviously. We have similar personalities. We have something in common already. And if you have something in common with me, you're very likely to have something in common with all of the other viewers. And I wanted to do something that kind of knit our little community together a little bit more closely. And I had kind of a radical idea about it. I was thinking about kind of a knit together pen pal kind of a program sort of thing, where if you wish, if this is of interest to you, we would have an initial sign up so that I could get a head count. And with that sign up and with that head count, I would then dye up a bunch of yarns. But I would only dye them up in potmates, in sets of 2. So that for each colorway, there were only going to be 2 skeins in that. I would then open it up for you each to go and purchase the yarn that you were most attracted to. You go and you buy your skein. Whoever buys your potmate, whoever buys the matching skein, would then be your knit mate. And determined on what the interest is and how secure you guys all feel, I would then provide each of you the other person's email or Ravelry ID, whatever we agree on. And this would give you a jumping off point where you can meet another like-minded knitter, where you already have something in common. You have the same skein of yarn. You've purchased something that you love. And that gives you an opening about something to discuss. What pattern are you going to knit with it? Why did you choose that yarn? And an introduction, a soft introduction to each other, so that you've got a knit mate, a knitting pen pal, as it were. And you have the opportunity to meet somebody else online that you have something in common with. It's kind of a radical idea. It kind of excites me. The idea that I would go and I would pick out a yarn and meet somebody new. And then we have the option of maybe picking out the same pattern and knitting along together with it, or choosing patterns that complement each other, such as we're both doing a 2-color fade cowl, and we're going to see how different the yarn looks where we combine a different yarn with it, or we do a striping project or something. And we get to really appreciate that yarn and converse about the yarn and our knitting and our projects and whether or not we're working together on something. And this could ultimately go so far as, when we're all done, we may have like an outside deadline, 3-4 months, give you plenty of time to work on projects. I have a bazillion projects that I need to work on, so stopping everything to do another project can be difficult, and I get that, and having open timelines is good. But having an opportunity where each team can post what they did with their yarns, and maybe we do some kind of a giveaway kind of drawing based on that even. But beyond giveaways and yarn and all that, it would be an opportunity to meet somebody else. And there's not huge cost associated to that. You're buying a skein of yarn that you love. There's your cost. Outside of that, there's the cost of time of emailing back and forth with somebody that you may be the next best friend. If this is of interest to you, I did lob this out in my group on Ravelry. If you're not on Ravelry, that's fine. I get it. Not everybody uses every platform out there. You are welcome to message me directly via email or right here on the YouTube platform. Let me know if this is of interest to you, if you think that that's a cool idea, if you would participate, and what your concerns are. Do you have privacy concerns about that? Do you have expense concerns about that? I have played with that in my head. I really have thought about this a lot before I lob it out at you. Where there would be the question of, Do we all want to do this on a worsted weight? Do we all want to do this on a fingering weight? If this is a set group like this, absolutely I'm going to offer it at a discounted rate, because I recognize that there's expense. Not everybody can go out and buy 20 skeins of yarn at the craft fair and then go home and order online and then order from this indie dyer and that indie dyer and this one's got a club, and I get it. I have a tight budget myself. My God, I just got an estimate of things that need to be done to my car. Ooh. Isn't it amazing how repairs are like 1/20th the cost of a new car sometimes, or worse, a 10th? I'm going through a little sticker shock that's neither here nor there, but it's me relating to you and understanding that you have expenses in your life. I got a hot water heater that is laughing at me because it's just waiting. It's waiting for the coldest morning that I sleep in before it laughs and goes, yeah, I don't work anymore. It's coming. I know it. And I'm terrified of it. And we need to clean that garage and be proactive. Yeah, anyway. We're all real. We all have lives and we all have expenses. And I don't want this to be a deficit. I don't want it to be something you miss out on. I'm trying to build a community and give you a gift. So please, I would love to hear what you think about the knit together community mixer kind of a thing that I'm lobbing out there. Very, very finally here, I'm just going to cover real quickly Patreon. If you don't know about my Patreon page, please have a visit and consider offering your support. There are benefits at every level, even if you can only give $1. Thank you. Every penny of that matters to me. The chances are very high in the drawing levels that you're going to win. In some cases, there's a 25% chance that you'll get the drawing that month. The next drawing is the next podcast. It will be May 5th. There is exclusive content available if you are a Patreon member, and that includes patterns and worksheets and more. There's always going to be something there. I try to add to it on a regular basis. Often it is patterns that I am designing, and I design as quickly as I can. You've seen the workload. But the ultimate goal of my Patreon is to fund things such as full-length online classes. There was recently discussion about trying to do a virtual knit night where we are able to sit down with our phones or our laptops and log into a video like conference call. And for those people who are remote or those people that don't have knit groups, we would all be able to connect and see each other face to face, voice to voice, with our projects in our laps and our tea in our hands, and have a community knit. Initially, I've looked at this. It looks like that there's cost involved in that, and through Patreon, I would fund that and make that happen for all of us. It's just a matter of getting that funding built up so that that's something that we can do, and researching that option. If you have knowledge about how those things work, I would love to hear from you. I'm a little technically declined on those. I haven't done them. My understanding is that Google does kind of a knit night thing, or a video connect group thing, but I'm pretty sure there's cost involved in that, and I need to get a heads up as to what that cost is so I can budget that into the funding that I receive. I would love to hear from you. That's everything. I have prattled on for a very long time. I'm sure that you've had to watch this in little breakups, or you sat down and you had a fine knit with me, and I'm so glad you joined me. Every time I sit down with you, this is a conversation to you collectively, but also very much to you, the individual, you personally, you, my friend. And this is our private time, this is our self time, and that means a lot to me, and I hope it's meaningful to you as well. So, thank you. I have all kinds of things I need to go dye, and I have laundry and dishes because I do things at the same time. Have a great week. I'll see you next time. Bye.